Good evening, everybody. My name is Greg Horn, and I'm the editor-publisher of the Yuriwaze newspaper here in Ganawage, and you're listening to the March Month in Review. Today, we're joined by Marc Lalonde and Jordan Standup, both journalists here at Yuriwaze in Ganawage, and we have a lot of things to talk about. Things have always seemed to get busy starting this time of year. One of the things that March 2021 brings is the first anniversary of the COVID-19 pandemic, and I mean, so we've been in this now for just over a year, and we continue to navigate it and try to move forward, and we're starting to see some really good things happening, with vaccination clinic opening up and all the different rollouts of different things, and hopefully we're going to start seeing some relaxing of measures in the community and outside the community.
I think one of the things to mention as part of the whole vaccine rollout that we're seeing here in Ganawage, or now that we're in the midst of it, is how lucky we are to have that opportunity to be able to be vaccinated when we have been. I mean, if you look on the outside, they're still waiting, and some of these people still don't know when they're going to get their first vaccine. And for a lot of us, when we did get our first vaccine, we already have our appointment set for our second vaccine. So I think it's very exciting to be able to have the opportunity, and I'm hoping that more and more people are going to be taking advantage of it.
Yeah, for sure. And one of the things that the task force has discussed in the past, as we're building up to the vaccination clinic starting, was that the idea here is to protect the entire community. And being able to protect the entire community also means protecting some of the people that are here on a daily basis or on a regular basis, whether that be teachers, social workers, and journalists that aren't from the community but work in the community. And over the past week or so, the teachers from the community schools, social workers who are working in the community, who aren't from the community, and some journalists as well, from Kiln 3 and from here, have had the opportunity to get vaccinated. Marc Lalonde, who hails from the West Island, he was able to get his vaccine earlier this week. Can you talk about your experiences?
I would be delighted. It's really fun as an outsider to sort of see the juxtaposition between non-Indigenous communities and Indigenous communities, specifically Ganawage, and the efficiency with which they've rolled the vaccine out. My experience having gotten the vaccine was efficient, quick, in, out, no crowds, no lines, no headaches, no hiccups, no nothing. I would argue that there are people in Quebec who could take a lesson from the way the vaccine has been rolled out here in Ganawage. And frankly, the care with which I felt I had been treated sort of made me feel even better about getting my shot here in Ganawage. So, I mean, it's a double whammy, frankly, for people to come here and look and see the efficiency with which it's been rolled out. It's remarkable to me. And that was my immediate thought, was just how great it went.
Yeah. And I mean, you're not in the age groups that are available to get in Quebec right now. I think on the island of Montreal, it's 60 plus right now.
Still 60 plus, yeah.
Last week, Quebec Premier Francois Legault said that any Quebecer who wishes to be vaccinated should be vaccinated with their first dose by June 24th. By that time, most of us here in Ganawage will be days away from the second dose of the vaccine. So, I mean, for you getting the opportunity to get vaccinated here that much quicker, like how did that make you feel?
Well, it's funny because like I everybody has issues of their own, but I have a small underlying health condition that obviously concerns me a little bit with COVID. So my sense of relief was overwhelming. I'll be quite honest with you. It was quite palpable to walk out of there and feel a sense of relief, because frankly, I believe that's what all of us frankly need right now. After 54 weeks of this, of every time you go outside, every time you leave your home, you're concerned that maybe something you breathe in may kill you. And that's a huge thing to have to live with.
Yeah. And I think part of the concern too is not, if you look at the statistics and the numbers, people that are our age and younger are less susceptible to the worst of this virus, right? Mm-hmm. But the concern has always been, if you get it And for the most part, anybody in this room right now, to get it would be fine. But the scare and the concern is passing it on to somebody who doesn't, who is susceptible and who could have the worst effects. And in the community's response to the pandemic, with the task force being mobilized because of the Ganawang Emergency Preparedness Law, taken from the lessons of the ice storm in 1998, really put the community in probably the best possible position. I mean, if you look at across Canada and across North America, for that matter, most First Nations communities have not been unscathed. If you look at just as a sister community, Six Nations, following December, January, they saw some really high numbers. And, I think they still have about 300 people that are in isolation waiting results. And, there was 8 deaths. And earlier this month, there was 4 deaths, and they were all siblings. So I mean that's horrible, and I mean I can't imagine what they're going through as a community. We've been lucky where I think at last tally, 109, 110 confirmed cases of COVID-19 in the community, 2 hospitalizations only, and that's it. And we had people that contracted the virus very early on. A week or 2 weeks into the pandemic last year, we had a cluster of people who had contracted the virus. And I think the way things are rolling out seem to be very important. And as Commissioner of Public Safety Lloyd Phillips has stated a number of times, is that vaccination and herd immunity is the key to moving forward. There's only 2 ways that you can achieve herd immunity, is through vaccination or naturally getting the virus and surviving, which most people will, but you might have some long-term complications or pass it on to somebody who will have long-term complications. So the safest way is through vaccination. And I mean, that's where we're at. I'm going to shift gears a little bit here. Talking about we're 1 year into this. We've now done this past week will be 51 issues that we've been where the majority of the team here at UD is working from home. Jordan, you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, it's been quite an experience. We wrote about it from our perspectives in some of the earlier issues this month. And it's been, like I said, it's been an experience. I pretty much transformed the kitchen table into a home office / classroom because, of course, my son is still home and he's doing all of his virtual learning and everything like that. So it's just been a balance, it's just really about balancing everything. But, we've created a schedule, and even when I'm working at home, I try to apply the same work ethics. I try to be ready, start working at, 8 a.m. or 8:30. I get up, I get dressed, I get ready for my day. I try to do everything the same that I would do as if I were coming into the office. And I think applying that method has really helped me keep a level head for the majority of the year.
Yeah, I mean, and it's been a challenge, obviously, because we can't have, for the longest time we couldn't have story meetings the way we normally do. We couldn't do. I mean, it's still covering news and events in the community that in a different way. There's less community-wide events that are happening in a normal fashion. So, if we just look back to last month with would have been the normal times, the Ganawang Youth Center's Winter Carnival, and that is something that there's dozens and dozens of events that we'd be covering on a daily basis, and this year everything was done virtually, and there was hardly any events to actually go out and cover. So it makes for a change and getting used to things, and hopefully with the measures now in the state that they're in, and with the community being vaccinated, and the goal is to have 80% of the community vaccinated by April 6th, is that some of these measures can start to be relaxed, and we can start having some things that are more normal. Maybe I think we're going to be covering a lot of golf and a lot of baseball, and maybe some tennis over at the new tennis court and things like that. But for other things, I think we're still quite a ways away.
I feel like when it comes to the vaccines and the pandemic and everything we've been through the last year, I feel like we've all been through enough now. I mean, doesn't necessarily mean that, the vaccine and everything is going to be the end all and be all, but if it's going to get us a little bit closer to what we know or start to get there, I mean, just earlier this month, I had to sing happy birthday to my grandmother through a window again. And I just want to go see my grandparents again. And I think everybody can really agree with that, or even your parents in a lot of circumstances. So I'm excited. The weather is getting nicer, vaccines, and I just feeling very hopeful. I hope everybody else is too.
Yeah. And then maybe, we can start moving forward. Kids can go back to school in school and be able to interact with their friends and, and because that's a huge thing, right? That we've seen over the last few months that mental health has become a bigger topic, and because immediately what everybody thought was, all right, we've got to stay home, shut things down, because if you don't move, the virus doesn't move. But things just the way they evolved, and it was about physical health that was the priority for the first 9, 10, 12 months of the pandemic. And then, now we see things like KSCS putting out a release saying that there's a backlog and a waiting list for access to mental health services. And I mean, it's good that people are trying to seek out ways to get help and to talk, but it's also very concerning that we have wait lists for these types of services, right?
To add to that, actual matter of fact, in the city, support services for mental health for the indigenous community is also backlogged. They are up to their eyes in requests for support, and they also are at their wits' end trying to answer all the requests. There is a lot of concern about mental health for the time being, and that shouldn't be a surprise. We've been locked up and unsocial for a year.
Yeah. And I mean, last month we had Luana Zachary from Sagotia Digenhas Community Services come in and talk about that. And she was saying that, it seems that there's a backlog of a year, for getting services. And I mean, that's concerning. And we need more people in these positions. But you also need to find ways to get support. If you can't get it from a professional, then get friends and family members that you can open up to and talk to, and realize that it's okay to not be okay, and to talk about it, and to let things go instead of letting them fester up inside, right?
And then the more that you talk to other people, you start to realize very quickly you're not alone. A lot of people are dealing with the same things that you're dealing with on a daily basis. They have the same concerns as you. That in itself makes you feel a little bit better.
Yeah, for sure. I guess again we'll shift some gears here. Because there was quite a few things that had happened over the course of March. One of those things was Ganhua Gerdonu, who is serving and has been serving in the U.S. Air Force for nearly 2 decades, has got an important change made within the Air Force, and she hopes that it'll make a change and it'll reach the other branches of the military. And Crystal Stacy, she's been in the Air Force for 17 years now. She's stationed right near Biloxi, Tennessee, I believe. During a conversation that she was having with, I guess, the higher ups on her base about dog tags, there's no place to denote that you're Native American on there. And so from her conversation, they were able to get a policy change made within the Air Force that now Indigenous people who are serving in the U.S. Air Force on their dog tags can put down their nation. So her dog tags now say Crystal Stacy with all the other pertinent information, and then Mohawk Nation, which is huge. And I think that's a huge move in the right direction for something like the U.S. military. It's not something I think that, many people from the community have served in various branches of the U.S. military. And I think this is probably something that's very welcome.
I would 100% ride on the coattails of that. And I would agree that at a certain point, it doesn't make any sense not to indicate it. Because frankly, a nation is a nation is a nation. And the more we can reconcile those notions within how can I put it, within the non-Indigenous community, the more I feel open and frank communication is going to be. Like, if you're putting Mohawk Nation on it, you're indicating this is a person with agency in the world, and that agency has to be noted. Everybody comes from someplace.
Yeah, and that's important. I mean, especially for Mohawk people and other Haudenosaunee people, we've always maintained that we're not Canadian, we're not American, and that, you know, if we're going to serve in the various branches of the military, it's on our own terms. And I mean, if you go back to World War II, the Confederacy actually declared war on Japan and Germany that enabled our people to serve in the military without having to worry about, you know, allegiances, because that, you know, it's things like that make it show where we're coming from in our worldview. And for now, at least one branch of the U.S. military to be able to recognize that we should be putting people's nations as well on their dog tags.
I mean, anytime we get a chance to represent ourselves and show people who we are is definitely positive. And because we have such a rich military history here in the community, as Greg was mentioning earlier, it's great to see things like that. And I know Greg has a lot of friends and family. You have a lot of experience. You know the military really, really well. What are some of the responses from people when they found out the news?
From the different people that I spoke to and just seeing the response on social media was that, you know, people were really happy and really proud and thinking that, it's about time. You know, it's something that's really cool. Mm-hmm. You know, it's a small step, but it's a step in the right direction. And if you keep on going in that direction, then you're going to do good things, right? Mark?
I would jump on that and even argue that seeing the U.S. military, which has historically not been an entity that has not been quick to change over the years and make shifts in the way they think, for the U.S. military to make this distinction speaks to a shift in the thinking of the overall population.
Well, it's one branch in the military, and it's a start.
Agreed. A start is a start is a start. And
yeah. So, I mean, again, what else has happened? I mean, we've all covered a lot of things this month, you know, and there's, I think, some more serious things that had happened this past month. If you go back to earlier in March, there was a drug operation on Hawk Avenue in Ganawage. I think more people were asking, where's Hawk Avenue than what kind of drugs were seized, because, you know, as people know, you know, Ganawage historically doesn't have street names, but there's been a street naming identification project that launched a couple of years ago to just help emergency services better locate different places and whatever. So that's the sidebar of that. But peacekeepers on Hawk Avenue conducted a search warrant and arrested 3 local males, and it was cannabis products that they've been charged with, but it was more serious than cannabis. I mean, they had a lab that they were producing what's known as shatter, which is a cannabis concentrate. It gets its name because you use solvents to create it. You superheat. I'm not sure exactly the process, but the end result is you get a glass-like substance that shatters, and the user smokes it. It's highly concentrated cannabis products. And again, the process to make it requires, I believe, a high level of butane, and that could create problems, a dangerous situation, and potential explosions and things like that. So it's not just the case of, cannabis is legal now, so, you know, just leave them alone and whatever. But again, it's the production of cannabis, and in the community itself right now, the Ganawag Cannabis Control Law and subsequent regulations still not fully enacted, then there's no process to get a license to do this. So it's akin to producing alcohol without a license and selling it without a license. So you know, there's different things there, right? It's a complex situation, but then I believe a week later, probably worst case scenario that could happen happened.
Mm-hmm.
Peacekeepers received a phone call about an unresponsive male at a residence in the Clay Mountains area. Peacekeepers and fire brigade arrived on the scene, and there was a local 31-year-old male unconscious. CPR was performed, brought to the hospital, and died of an apparent drug overdose. There's still details we don't know. Still, an investigation is underway. We'll know more after that investigation is concluded. However, in all the years that I've been doing reporting in the community, I don't know if we've ever had an overdose death like that, which is very concerning, very sad. That then sparked movement, I guess, with people met at the fire in the green space near the Mercy Bridge that's been there for a little bit over a year now, and then decided that something needs to be done about the drug problem in the community, and held a drive-by to the area where the young man was found dead, and to show support for the family in the neighborhood who've lost somebody following that the same thing happened. And also the drive-by went through the community just to show people that there's people that are here that can talk and or want to do something and help eradicate this problem. That was I think one of the most difficult things that as a community we've had to deal with, on top of a pandemic, and also not something easy that's to report on either.
No, you're talking about this is Ganawage. Everybody knows everybody. And when you're reporting on something like this, you're probably reporting on a friend or an acquaintance or someone you know through someone else. And it brings it that much more close to home, and it makes it that much more scary, frankly.
Yeah. Again, this is very tragic and it's sad, and hopefully nobody else in the community has to go through what this family is going through right now.
And I think the positive in all this is that dialogue has been created. This is a tipping point. People want to do something, and when there is a will, there's a way. So I haven't been in Ganawage that long, but I have seen that when this community wants to do something, it gets done.
Yeah. We're going to wrap up soon, but I think one of the things that we need to talk about, and it's circling back now to the pandemic and COVID-19 and the vaccines, is that, we have a very short time frame here for the vaccination clinic. The goal is 80% of the community. Last time I checked, we're about 55% of the community has been vaccinated. Past couple of days, there has been walk-ins allowed and no need to book an appointment. Of course, they're still booking appointments, but walk-ins are now allowed at least on 2 dates that they've said that they're going to allow people to walk in. And it's very important that people who want to be vaccinated or who are on the fence about being vaccinated to get the process started, to and if you're feeling apprehensive, look at some reputable sites, talk to your family doctor or talk to people who are informed, look at different things and get the information and base your decision on whether or not you're going to get the vaccine on fact. Because I think that's the most important thing, because we need to be able to move forward. And the community has received 6,000 vaccines of doses of the Moderna vaccine. And I'm not sure how many are left, but earlier this week, the KMHC announced that they had to return 1,000 doses because ethically they can't keep them here if they can be used somewhere else. And because these vaccines have a shelf life, so they need to be put in arms in one, whether it's here or whether it's somewhere else. But they need to be. It needs to be done. Mm-hmm. So
I'm glad that you mentioned that, Greg, about just basing your decisions on facts and looking at reputable sources. And people, or I at least hope people, are going to take advantage of how accessible it is to be able to receive this vaccine in our own backyard, and literally. So I think also big picture is that we want to make sure that we're protecting our most vulnerable, as you mentioned earlier too, of course. And we have to think about our community, our generations that are coming, and our elders, of course.
Yeah, with that, I just want to thank everybody for listening, and stay tuned to where you're listening to this on your podcast machine, because we're going to be having some more topics to discuss in the very near future. Thanks, Anna.
Anna.